Hare Krishna, welcome to part 2 of the question and answer session on the ninth chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So, the first question by Srinath ji, Guruji, my pranams. Every chapter and every verse of the Bhagavad Gita conveys a message for life. That is the reason that Bhagavad Gita is called a manual for life. Definitely, yes. Every verse and every letter of the Bhagavad Gita is divine and is the ultimate guide for mankind, for every human being, both individually and collectively. But there is so much unrest and disturbance in the universe, and people are doing all sorts of bad things. We should know that the worst thing is not to follow the teachings of the Supreme Lord as given in the Bhagavad Gita. The COVID-19, which has currently engulfed the entire world, may be the result of all that is happening in this world. How would you explain this? Actually, I have made one more video to elaborately explain this. So I do recommend you to go through that video as well. It is in the YouTube channel called The Ultimate Vaccine to All Fear. So the thing is, this material world is characterized by the four problems of Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi: birth, death, old age and disease. So definitely in the place where these are the basic features of material life, one cannot avoid them, and whenever we become more and more antagonistic and divert ourselves from the path of dharma as laid down by the Supreme Lord, dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam, the severity, the intensity of these problems of old age, disease, death would definitely increase more and more, as we are seeing now in the outbreak of this COVID-19 disease. So yes, once we become obedient to the laws of God and to the laws of nature, definitely even the severity of these problems come down. Just like we have the example of Rama Rajya, or the reign of Yudhishthira Maharaj. It is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 10, text number 6, that Nadhayo Vyadhaya Klesha Daiva Bhutatma Hetavaha. During the reign of the great devotee Yudhishthira Maharaj, because he was a pure devotee of Krishna, even the entire kingdom, all the citizens of the kingdom were free from unnecessary disturbances of not only disease, physical disease. Physical disease refers to vyadhi, and adi refers to even mental disturbances. So such was the wonderful reign of the kingdom when the king and the people become God conscious or Krishna conscious. And the more we become material conscious, the more we increase the sufferings of birth, death, old age and disease. The next question, Namaste Guruji. The trinity of Brahma, Vishnu and Mahesha create, maintain and destroy the universe. But in Bhagavad Gita, sage Vyasa portrays Sri Krishna, an incarnation of Lord Vishnu, as creator and maintainer both, and also stepping in when adharma reaches a climax point. Please clear my confusion. So I had already explained it earlier in a similar question, that the ultimate creator, the ultimate destroyer and the maintainer, everything is explained in all the Vedic scriptures, specifically in the Bhagavad Gita and in the Srimad Bhagavatam, as the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. And Brahmaji and Lord Shiva do the secondary part. The primary creation and the primary destruction is done by the primary creation by Karanodakashai Vishnu, and the primary destruction by Sankarshana, and the secondary creation and the secondary destruction is carried out by Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. So the Bhagavad Gita is the final revelation of the ultimate absolute truth, and it is very clearly established that the supreme creator, destroyer, maintainer, and even beyond that, all the attributes of God are completely realized in the divine personality of Sri Krishna. So why? Because this is the final truth, this is the actual fact. So next question by Shri Pradeep Doshi ji. Namaste Guruji. In the previous chapter you had mentioned that 1 in millions worship me. The fact is, this is stated in 7.3, that it is not that 1 in million worships me. Kaschin mam vetti tattvataha. 1 in millions of liberated beings has the qualification of Bhagavat Sakshatkara. Kaschin Mamveti Tattvataha, realizes Krishna or God in truth. So, but here Shri Krishna says that I accept any offerings of leaves, flowers and fruits, and also offerings of fruits of karma. Yes, the door is wide open for everyone to practice the path of bhakti. So, is it minimum or maximum of all these which is required? So, yes, even the minimum is, even the maximum is not sufficient. One can offer everything to the Supreme Lord, including one's own body and soul, like Bali Maharaj. Bali Chakravarti is the epitome of Atma Nivedana, one who offered everything in Sharanagati, in surrender to the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. The next part of the question is, in 9.32 it is said that ladies, women, Vaishya, Shudras, Papayoni, Chandalas also can get liberated if they surrender. My question is that, isn't it true for all human beings, as only 1 in million surrenders to him? Why have ladies, women, Vaishyas and Shudras being singled out? So they are specifically referred in 9.32 as that Striyo Vaishyas Tatha Shudraha Tepi Yanti Param Gatim. The word te api, that even they, even the most fallen, it may be a Shudra or a Chandala or anyone, any human being. Yes, it applies to everyone. That is why Krishna in the next verse he says, Kim Punar Brahmana Punya Bhakta Rajarshayasthatha, that what more to speak of the pious and the spiritually elevated personalities. So when even the most degraded personality can te apiyanti param gatim, even when they can attain the supreme perfection by the process of bhakti. So this is the magic, this is the great potency of the path of bhakti. By no other process this is possible, but Krishna says mam vyapashritya, if they surrender to me, then it may be anyone, it may be the most fallen person or it may be the most spiritually elevated person, everyone can attain paramagati. The next question by Dr. Shastri ji. Namaskara Prabhuji. Following 9th chapter analysis, you told in the end that the last shloka number 34 is the only shloka repeated twice in Bhagavad Gita. If I am correct, it is the 65th shloka of 18th chapter. Exactly right. 18.65. Again, the same verse is repeated, that Manmana Bhava Mad Bhakto Madhyachi Mam Namaskuru. But with a slight difference, the third line is slightly different, that Mame Vaishyasi Satyam Te Pratijane Priyosi Me. Kindly clarify. Yes, so there is a slight difference, but the import, the purport, the meaning is exactly the same. So this is the most confidential, the most valuable, the most important part of the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, to engage in pure love of God by performing these 4 activities. The next question by Major Ravindran ji. Prabhuji Pranam. Wonderful explanation of chapter 9. Thank you. Please refer shloka 9.20 which says that all the rituals promise that we can have them only after the body falls. It is basically chapter 9, text 20 and 21 explain the elevation by following the Karma Kanda portion of the Vedas, which are called as Traimaya. One gains elevation to Svargaloka, or to the heavenly planets. So any statement about one's life thereafter are speculative and imaginary. Yeah, whether you take it as factual or imaginary, actually attainment of heaven is completely worthless. Krishna says in 9.21 that Gatagatam Kama Kama Labhante. It is simply like going around in a merry-go-round, sometimes up and sometimes down. There is no real spiritual benefit in such a process, and therefore Tridashapur Akasha Pushpayate, the great Acharya Prabodhananda Saraswati has stated that attainment of heavenly planets is Tridashapur Akasha Pushpayate, is like building castles in the heaven, is like a flower in the sky. It is just imaginary and speculative. One need not run after castles in the sky, in the air. So then please refer shloka 22, that is the famous shloka Ananyas Chintayanto Mam, the last verse Yogakshemam Vahamyaham. Infer that LIC has borrowed from this shloka. Definitely yes, LIC has not invented Yogakshemam Vahamyaham. In fact, they cannot. You ask even the managing MD of LIC, what happens after death? What yoga and kshema they can deliver? Money? It is absolutely of no use actually. So the real yoga and kshema, vahamyaham, this is borrowed by LIC, or you can even say stolen by LIC. It is plagiarized by LIC without even acknowledging. See, in the material world, if anyone takes copies something from somewhere, they have to acknowledge it, they have to express their gratitude. So actually LIC should have also at the bottom that we have taken this from the Bhagavad Gita 9.22 and express their gratitude to the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. Otherwise they are borrowing, almost stealing from the Bhagavad Gita. The next question by Shri Satyanarayan ji, inspiring talk Guruji, but for some problem, okay, there was some connectivity problem. We hope that there is no such thing today. My question is, in our culture we give priority to worship our family deity, for example Nanjundeshwara or Narasimha and so on and so forth. But after performing the puja, there is the practice of Vasudeva Arpane. Yes, it is also stated in the scriptures that Akashat Patitam Toyam Yatha Gacchati Sagaram Sarvadeva Namaskaram Keshavam Prati Gacchati, that finally the worship of all the devatas leads to the worship of Keshava. But why do it indirectly? Directly do Keshava Bhakti and it goes directly to Lord Keshava. So should this practice of daily archana and joining satsanga shall be sufficient for our Atma Unnati? So the path of spiritual life is vast like an ocean. You cannot say that anything is sufficient. How much ever you do, you can do even more. You can do with even more dedication. You can spend more time. You can give more your heart and soul in every moment, in every activity of bhakti. So you cannot say that something is sufficient and stop at that. There is always the path of you can always improve on whatever spiritual practices that you are performing. The final question, Jai Shri Krishna Prabhuji, a very interesting question. Arjuna received divine knowledge from Lord Krishna himself, yet he did not go to Svargaloka after he died. In fact, none of the Pandavas except Dharmaraja. Kindly help me understand this. Thank you. So please listen to this explanation with great care and attention, because the description of the Pandavas' final journey is explained not only in Mahabharata. Mahabharata in the Mahaprasthanika Parva is one description of the passing away of the Pandavas. there is one more second description which is found in chapter 15 of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So I invite everyone to read chapter 15 of the Prathama Skandha, the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, specifically in the verses 47-48. It is very beautifully described as to how the Pandavas, Arjuna, even Draupadi, all of them attained moksha, and they are such great personalities that they went to not Swargaloka. Swargaloka is nothing. Swargaloka is like dirt and filth for the Pandavas. Even not only Swargaloka, all the Urdhvalokas up to Brahmaloka were rejected by the Pandavas, and they went to a much more exalted situation. That is, they went straight back to Vaikuntha Loka, in the spiritual world, beyond the material world, beyond the heavenly planets, beyond Swarga, Mahagloka, Janaloka, Tapoloka, Brahmaloka. They crossed everything and went back to the spiritual world in their eternal divine forms. Even the Pandavas do not have material bodies. So it is stated in 1.15.47 and 48 that Tasmin तद्ध्यानोद्रिक्तया भक्त्या विशुद्धाधिषणा परे तस्मिन् नारायणपदे हि एकान्तमतयो गतिम् अवापुर्दुरवापां ते ह्यसद्भिर्विषयात्मभिः विधूतकल्मषास्थानं विरजेन आत्मनैव हि. The great Acharyas have explained these two verses very elaborately, how in the self-same bodies, because the Pandavas have spiritual bodies, not material bodies, they went in the self-same bodies to Narayana Pada, to Vaikuntha Loka, all the five of them. And even Draupadi cha tadagnaya patinam anapekshatam vasudeve bhagavati hekanta gatirapatam. Even Draupadi went back to the spiritual world, to Vaikuntha Loka, in the self-same body. So how do we understand this contrast of the description of the so-called, actually as per Bhagavatam, they never even died. There is no death even for the pure devotees like Pandavas. They went in the self-same body back to Godhead, back to the spiritual world. And whereas the Mahabharata in the Mahaprasthanika Parva explains that first Draupadi fell and died, so-called death, and then Nakula, Sahadeva, Arjuna. So the fact is that the personality of the Pandavas are a combination of two. They are two in one, just like we have double role in movies. So likewise, they are two in one. One part of the Pandavas is a Deva Amsha, just like Yudhishthira is Dharma Raja Amsha, Bhima is Vayu Amsha, Arjuna is Indra Amsha, Nakula Sahadeva is Ashwini Kumara Amsha. But the main significant, the second role, the second part of the Pandavas are, they are the Nitya Parshadas of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, having arrived directly from the spiritual world, from Vaikuntha Loka. They are combination of both these parts. And Mahabharata is describing only with this perspective. The focus is only on the Deva Amsha. And Deva Amsha, they are dying. But from the perspective of the Bhagavata, which looks at the Pandavas to be the eternal associates, the Nitya Suris, the Nitya Parshadas of Krishna, they don't even have death. They are going in the self-same body. They are attaining liberation. They don't have to attain liberation. They are ever liberated. They are Nitya Muktas. The Pandavas are eternally liberated, and they are just going. They came along with Krishna from Vaikuntha Loka. They are going back to Vaikuntha Loka in the self-same divine forms. So that is the glory of Pandavas as explained in Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the highest, the topmost literature. So we should understand from these perspectives, and then we can have a complete understanding. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Please do join us today evening. Hare Krishna.